Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Kassandra and this is going to be a headstand tutorial. So if you've ever wanted to learn Sirsasana headstand pose, I'm going to take you through this pretty in depth. So we're going to start by going over some drills and strength building poses that will really help you stay safe and comfortable in headstand, and then we'll go over different techniques that can help get you there. So the first thing you'll notice is that I have my yoga mat up against the wall. This is what I recommend that you do if you are new to headstand pose and new to inversions in general. Some teachers believe that the wall becomes a crutch and that students are better off learning this pose in the middle of the room. I can see their point, because definitely if you become too comfortable doing something at the wall, you might be hesitant to move away, but I just think it's the safest way to go about it. And personally, it's how I learned. So when I was first starting my practice and first starting to get interested in inversions, the wall was my friend. And over time, once I became more confident and comfortable, I moved to the middle of the room. But for now, grab your mat, get a wall. That will be very helpful. So the thing with headstand that I think is misleading and misunderstood is that yes, we're balancing on our head, but most of our body weight is not going to be resting on the head. You actually need mostly a lot of upper body strength. A lot of it is going to come from your shoulders, from your arms, and from your upper back. So when I'm in a headstand, if I had to put a number to it, I'll maybe say that no more than 20 to 25% of my body weight is actually resting on my head. The rest, 75%, is in my forearms, in my shoulders, in my upper back. So we're never trying to completely collapse our neck and let all of our body weight rest here, okay? Our necks are really sensitive, obviously, and crucial. So we really want to be careful with that. I also never want to instruct people to kick and swing themselves into headstand. That is not proper technique. You really want to be tapping in and utilizing proper strength through your core, through your shoulders, through the muscles along your spine, the erectors. Another final thing that I'll mention before we actually get started here, headstand is not suitable for everybody. So if you are already somebody who deals with neck pain, I would recommend skipping this pose entirely. If you know that you don't have a lot of strength in your upper body, I would recommend practicing the strengthening poses that I'll show you in a second here, without necessarily going to the final step of trying the headstand. Wait until you actually have some strength, and wait until you specifically get comfortable with the idea of sending your weight forward and trying to align your hips over your shoulders. If there's ever any discomfort in your neck and in your upper back, please stop what you're doing. It means that you're putting too much pressure on the top of your head and not enough in your upper body. So what I mentioned there about tipping the weight forward and getting the hips over the shoulders, that's really the biggest thing when it comes to any and all inversions. That is not something that we're used to doing. It's a big shift in perspective, but at the end of the day, that's how we get the results that we want. So we really just kind of need to get comfortable with, pouring that body weight over and aligning hips over shoulders. And then we'll find that the headstand actually comes fairly easily once we're able to get comfortable and strong enough to maintain that. Okay, let's go over some strengthening things that you can do for your shoulders and your upper back to kind of get you comfortable within that realm. So first things first, you can come down. I'm going to do this against the wall. You don't actually need to do this with the wall. We're not going to be kicking up or anything. But I have my mat here, so I'm just going to use it. So I'm interlacing my hands. My elbows are about shoulder width distance apart, maybe a tiny little bit more narrow than my shoulders. And you see how we normally wrap one pinky over the other? That might be uncomfortable for you as you bring your palms down. It's a lot of pressure on your pinky joints here. So you can kind of tuck one under. Some people even just bring the palms flat, one behind the other, and put that at the back of their head. I don't totally love that one. So I just kind of curl my pinky under so I have a flat base and I'm not putting more pressure on one knuckle versus the other, because that can get uncomfortable quite fast. So when you have your hands clasped, you're going to bring them down on the mat. My elbows are roughly shoulder width distance apart, maybe a tiny bit more narrow than my shoulders. And then I'm going to lift up into dolphin pose. So we're not going into a headstand. We're just going to come into our dolphin pose. So I've been doing this drill a lot. If you've been practicing with my recent videos, you might have done this with me. Something that I really like to do from dolphin pose, as you push your chest back towards your thighs, you can practice lifting your heels up and just kind of tapping the crown of your head over towards your palms. So just doing that little rocking motion, I'm coming up onto my tippy toes, lifting my heels up high, and as you start doing this, you might be able to bring your feet further in. So the closer you have your feet, the harder this will be on your shoulders and on your upper body, but the more this will train you to get used to having your hips stacked over your shoulders. So I would recommend doing 10 or 20 of these every single day as you work on building some strength. So once you get comfortable with that, we're going to intensify this. This time, instead of tapping the crown of your head to your thumbs, you're going to place the crown of your head in between your palms as if you were coming into a headstand. And then you're going to push and lift yourself back out into that dolphin pose. So really practicing pushing your forearms into the ground to lift the crown of your head up. So practicing having your forearms taking up most of your body weight. And same thing here, the closer you have your feet in, the harder this will be, but the more strength you will build. And a little bit of note here on where I'm placing the weight when it comes to the crown of my head. Crown of the head is slightly misleading, so it's not going right here in the middle at the top of my head. I'm a little bit more forward than that. So if I'm looking down, it's kind of like the top of my forehead to the middle of my skull here and the top of my head. That's pretty much where I'm placing my weight. And again, it's not a lot of weight, but that's what's coming in contact with the mat. So make sure you're not sending that too far back. So once you feel fairly comfortable doing both of those exercises, the final option that I'll give you before actually going and trying out your headstand is to add even a little bit more weight to both your forearms as well as the crown of your head by lifting one leg at a time and alternating between the two. This is what's going to help you practice shifting your hips over your shoulders. So if I come back into my little supported headstand variation here, placing my palms down, elbows out, I'm gonna tuck the toes under. So if I'm shifting forward and placing the top of my head in between my forearms, kind of towards my palms here, I'm walking my feet in as close as I possibly can, as close as is comfortable. And then you can just play with lifting one leg. And maybe you're holding for a few breaths and then switching sides. So when I do this, I'm bringing and shifting my hips a lot more forward than before. So I'm starting to get used to this idea of kind of tipping over. And again, without letting the crown of my head actually absorb all of that weight. It's really from my elbows all the way up into my wrists. I'm actively feeling as if I'm pushing the floor away from me. So once you feel like those 3 exercises are feeling pretty good, you don't feel like there's any pinching or compression through your cervical spine, through your neck, it feels pretty good for your head, your arms and your shoulders feel strong, then you're ready to start practicing your headstand. So this is when you would want to have your mat close to the wall. When you're going in, I don't want you to be pressed up directly against the wall. I recommend being maybe 2.5 feet away from the wall and moving from there. And I'll show you 3 ways of coming up. The first one is the knee tuck. The second option is the leg lift. And the third is the hardest one, which is the float. So let's start with the knee to chest knee tuck variation. So you're interlacing your hands. You have already your strong foundation. You're placing yourself top crown of the head on the mat. And then what you can do is just bring one knee in towards your chest, actively pushing your forearms into the mat, and maybe you're just hovering here. So working on getting your hips directly over your shoulders. And if you feel comfortable, you can always, of course, start to straighten the legs, knowing that you have a wall behind you should you need it. But again, if you manage to really keep most of the weight into this first half of the crown of your head, you're less likely to roll over and fall and need the wall. When we go too far back, that's when we end up kind of doing a little bit of a somersault and rolling over our palms. So that's option 1, knee tuck, slowly lifting the legs. Option 2, float one leg at a time and use core strength to pull the other up. This is not a swing, it is not a kick, it is super controlled and it requires lower abdominal strength. So same thing, I'll just demonstrate from here. You want to make sure that you're going to do both evenly here. One leg is going to go up, and I'm really trying to send my hips as far back as possible. See how there's almost no weight in my left toes. They're hovering off the mat. By sending my leg further out, I'm slowly going to lift the left one up to join, shooting all of the energy up through my toes, actively pushing the floor away from me. And coming out. So that's option 2. Finally, I'll show you option 3, which is a float. I'm on a carpet, which is great if you're practicing at home on hardwood or, not carpet. I recommend putting some socks on for this one and folding up your mat just so it's out of the way. The way that I first learned to do the float was by dragging my toes on the ground, either with carpet or dragging the socks on the hardwood to really feel the engagement through my lower belly, which allowed me to lift my legs up. This is the hardest one. Be easy with yourself. Totally normal if it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice. So I'm going to move my mat a little bit further back actually for this one, just so I'm not too close to the wall. And then same thing as before, interlace your hands. You can always reverse the grip of your palms if it's feeling a little bit uneven here. We're going to place the crown of the head down. And then from here, what you want to feel is that you're dragging your toes in order to lift your legs up. So from more of a downward dog stance with the crown of my head down, I'm flipping my toes and I'm pulling them in and then using that pull to lift myself up. This is definitely the hardest variation. You can also work on this the opposite way. So get up however you like and then practice doing a slow, controlled float. So descending nice and slow. You need to shift your hips back to do this. And releasing. So just doing that reverse drill for that one. And there you have it. Those are 3 different ways to work on Sirsasana headstand. I hope you found this tutorial very helpful. Remember to have a sense of humor about this. Be easy with yourself. I know when we watch these tutorials online, people make it look so easy because, in my case, I've been practicing yoga for, 16, 17 years now. So I've had a lot of time to build up my practice towards this. It took me years to get into headstand. And even once I did get into headstand, it took many more years to actually feel really solid and comfortable in this pose. So give yourself some grace. Don't worry about it if it doesn't go the way that you intended it to. It's all an opportunity to learn about ourselves, to deepen our own connection with our body and mind while on the mat, and just let go of expectations, okay? Try to have fun with it, be really patient with yourself. And if you found this tutorial helpful, let me know. Please do leave me a comment. Let me know if you have questions as well that perhaps I did not answer in this video. I'll do my best to answer and give advice as I can. Please subscribe, and hopefully I'll be practicing again with you very soon.